Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please don't forget to hit that like button. Get a lot of views, not a lot of likes. I don't get it. Subscribe and share if the content resonates with you. And if you get anything from my work, a connect the dot, an epiphany, a mind-blown moment, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider my work by supporting it, and all the links will be down below. Everything and anything helps. The Urantia Book. We finally made it to paper 50. Woo! How exciting. Yesterday, we had a storm a few days ago. Really, really bad. And I didn't notice that a huge limb of a tree fell again, but it hit, I have like a bush tree. I don't even know what it is. I'm bad. I know basic gardening, but I don't know all the shrubbery names. So I have like this big thing in the front of my side of my front house. And it caught the limb. And because I had stacked a ton of tree branches there, because you really can't see it off the street, it was kind of like hiding the fact that I had this huge ass tree limb there. So of course I had to crank out the new chainsaw. Oh, did it work? I can't even get all of it off the tree, the bush, shrub, whatever it is that's in my front. So by the time I got all of that done, and I had a mow and weed whack, and I was exhausted. I still am. So yesterday I kind of took a day off. So I do apologize. I'm trying to keep consistent here. And no, I have not heard back from a job yet. Fun times. Paper 50. The Planetary Princes. This should be a good one. While belonging to the order of Lananadek sons, the Planetary Princes are so specialized in service that they commonly regarded as a distinct group. After their Melchizedek certification as secondary Lananadeks, these local universe sons are assigned to the reverses of their order on the constellation headquarters. From here, they are assigned to various duties by the system sovereign, eventually commissioned as planetary princes, and set forth to rule the evolving inhabited worlds. The signal for a system sovereign to act in the matter of assigning to a ruler to a given planet is the reception of a request from the life carriers for the dispatch of an administrative head to function on this planet, whereon they have established life and developed intelligent evolutionary beings. All planets which are inhabited by evolutionary mortal creatures have assigned to them a planetary ruler of this order of sonship. Mission of the Princes. The Planetary Prince and his assistant brethren represent the nearest personalized approach, aside from incarnation, that the eternal Son of Paradise can make to the lowly creatures of time and space. True, the Creator Son touches the creatures of the realms through his spirit, but the Planetary Prince is the last of the orders of personal sons, extending out from paradise to the children of men. The infinite spirit comes very near in the persons of the guardians of destiny and other angelic beings. The universal Father lives in man by the pre-personal presence of the mystery monitors, but the Planetary Prince represents the last effort of the eternal Son and his sons to draw near you. On a newly inhabited world, the Planetary Prince is the sole representative of a complete divinity, springing from the Creator Son, the offspring of the Universal Father and the Eternal Son, and the divine minister, the universe daughter of the infinite spirit. The prince of a newly inhabited world is surrounded by a local corps of helpers and assistants, and by large numbers of ministering spirits. But the directing corps of such new worlds must be of the lower orders of the administrators of a system in order to be innately sympathetic with and understanding of the planetary problems and difficulties. And all of these effort to provide sympathetic rulership for the evolutionary worlds entails the increased liability that these near human personalities may lead astray by the exhalation of their own minds over and above the will of the supreme rulers. Where are these guys now? Hi! We need you. Kind of. Really bad right now. Being quite alone as representatives of divinity on the individual planets, these suns are tested severely, and Nebadon has suffered the misfortune of several rebellions. In the creation of the system sovereigns and the planetary princes, there occurs the personalization of a concept that has been getting further and further away from the universal Father and the eternal Son, and there is an increasing danger of losing the sense of proportion as to one's self-importance and a greater likelihood of failure to keep a proper grasp of the values and relationships of the numerous orders of divine beings and their graduation of authority. That the Father is not personally presented in the local universe also imposes a certain test in faith and loyalty on these sons. But not often do these world princes fail in their missions of organizing and administrating the inhabited spheres, and their success greatly facilitates the subsequent missions of the material sons, who come to engraft the higher forms of creature life on the primitive man of the world. Their role also does much to prepare the planets for the paradise sons of God, who subsequently come to judge the worlds and to inaugurate successive dispensations. Planetary administration. All planetary princes are under the universal administrative jurisdiction of Gabriel, the chief executive of Michael. While in immediate authority, they are subject to the executive mandates of the system sovereigns. The planetary princes may at any time seek the counsel of the Melchizedeks, their former instructors and sponsors, but they are not arbitrarily required to ask for such assistance. And if such aid is not voluntarily requested, the Melchizedeks do not interfere with the planetary administration. That's where our shit went wrong. These world rulers may also avail themselves of the advice of the 24 counselors assembled from the bestowal worlds of the system. In Satania, these counselors are at present all natives of Urantia, and there is an analogous council of 70 at the constellation headquarters, also selected from the evolutionary beings of the realms. The role of the evolutionary planes in their early and unsettled careers is largely autocratic. The planetary princes organize their specialized groups of assistants from among their corps of planetary aides. They usually surround themselves with the Supreme Council of 12, but this is variously chosen and diversely constituted on the different worlds. A planetary prince may also have an assistant, one or more of the third order of his own group of sonship, and sometimes on certain worlds, one of his own order, a secondary Ladanadak associate. The entire staff of a world ruler consists of personalities of the infinite spirit, and certain types of higher evolved beings and ascending mortals from other worlds. Such a staff averages about 1,000, and as the planet progresses, this corps of helpers may be increased up to 100,000 or more. At any time need is felt for more helpers, the planetary princes have only to make requests of their brothers, the system sovereigns, and the petition to granted forthwith. Planets vary greatly in nature and organization and in administration, but all provide for tribunals of justice. The judicial system of the local universe has its beginnings in the tribunals of a planetary prince, which are presided over by a member of his personal staff. The decrees of such courts reflect a highly fatherly and discretionary attitude. Sorry, guys, my projection is really bad today. All problems involving more than the regulation of the planetary inhabitants are subject to appeal to the higher tribunals, but the affairs of his world dominion are largely adjusted in accordance with the personal discretion of a prince. The roving commissions of consulators serve and supplement the planetary tribunals. Both spirit and physical controllers are subject to the findings of these consulators, but no arbitrary execution is ever carried out without the consent of the constellation father, for the Most High's rule in kingdoms of men. The rulers and transformers of planetary assignment are also able to collaborate with angels and other orders of celestial beings in rendering these later personalities visible to mortal creatures. On special occasions, the seraphic helpers and even the Melchizedeks can and do make themselves visible to the inhabitants of evolutionary worlds. The principal reason for being mortal ascenders from the system capital as a part of the staff of the planetary prince is to facilitate communication with the inhabitants of the realm. The prince's corporal staff. On going to a young world, a planetary prince usually takes with him a group of volunteer ascending beings from the local system headquarters. These ascenders accompany the prince as advisors and helpers in the work of early race improvement. This corps of material helpers constitutes the connecting link between the prince and the world races. The Urantia prince, Kaligastia, had a corps of 100 such helpers. Such volunteer assistants are citizens of a system capital, and none of them have fused with their indwelling adjuster. The status of the adjusters of such volunteer servers remains as the residential standing on the system headquarters, while these Urantia progressors temporarily revert to a former material state. The life carriers, the architects of form, provide such volunteers with new physical bodies, which they occupy for the periods of their planetary sojourn. These personality forms, while exempt from the ordinary diseases of the realms, are, like the early Urantia bodies, subject to certain accidents of the mechanical nature. The prince's corporal staff are usually removed from the planet in connection with the next adjudication at the time of the second sun's arrival on the sphere. Before leaving, they customarily assign their various duties to the mutual offspring and to certain superior native volunteers on those worlds where these helpers of the prince have been permitted to meet with the supervisor groups of the native races. Such offspring usually succeed them. These assistants to the planetary prince seldom meet with the world races, but they do also and always meet among themselves. Two classes of beings result from these unions: the primary type of midway creatures and certain high types of material beings who remain attached to the prince's staff after their parents have been removed from the planet at the time of the arrival of Adam and Eve. These children do not mate with the mortal races except in certain emergencies, and then only by direction of the planetary prince. In such an event, their children, the grandchildren of the corporal staff, are in the status as the superior race of their day and generation. All the offspring of these semi-material assistants of planetary prince are adjuster and dwelt. At the end of the prince's dispensation, when the time comes for these reversion staff to be returned to the system headquarters for the redemption of the paradise career, these ascenders presented themselves to the life carriers for the purpose of yielding up their material bodies. They enter the transition slumber and await delivered from their mortal investments and clothed with Urantia forms, ready for the Sephiric transportation back to the system capital, where their detached adjusters await them. Their whole dispensation behind their Jerusalem class, but they have gained a unique and extraordinary experience, a rare chapter in the career of the ascending mortal. The planetary headquarters and schools. The Prince's corporal staff early organized the planetary schools of training and culture, wherein the cream of the evolutionary races are instructed and then sent forth to teach these better ways to their people. These schools of the Prince are located at the material headquarters of the planet. Much of the physical work connected with the establishment of these headquarters cities is performed by the corporal staff. Such headquarters cities or settlements of the early times of Planetary Prince are very different from a Urantia mortal might imagine. They are, in comparison with later ages, simple, being characterized by mineral embellishments and by relatively advanced material construction. And all of these stands in contrast with the atomic regime, centering around the garden headquarters from which their work in behalf of the races is prosecuted during the second dispensation of universe suns. In the headquarters settlement on your world, every human habitation was provided with abundance of land. Although the remote tribes continued to hunt and food foraging, the students and teachers in the Prince's School were all agriculturalists and horticulturalists. The time was about equally divided between the following pursuits. 1. Physical labor, cultivation of soil associated with home building and embellishment. Social activities, playing performances in cultural social groups. Education, application, individual instruction in connection with family group teachings, supplemented by specialized class training. Vocation training, schools of marriage and homemaking, the schools of art and craft training, and the classes for the training of teachers, secular, cultural, and religious. Spiritual culture, the teacher, brotherhood, the enlightenment of childhood, and youth groups, and training of adopted native children as missionaries to their people. A planetary prince is not visible to mortal beings. It is a test of faith to believe the representations of the semi-material beings of his staff. But these schools of culture and training are well adapted to the needs of each planet, and there soon develops a keen and laudatory rivalry among the races of men and their efforts to gain entrance to these various institutions of learning. This pages are thin. From such a world center of culture and achievement, there gradually radiates to all peoples an uplifting and civilizing influence which slowly and certainly transforms the evolutionary races. Meantime, the educated and spiritualized children of the surrounding peoples who have been adopted and trained in the Prince's schools are returning to their native groups and, to the best of their ability, are there establishing new and potent careers of learning and culture, which they carry on according to the plan of the Prince's School. On Urantia, these plans for planetary progress and cultural advancement were well underway, proceeding most satisfactorily. When the whole enterprise was brought to a rather sudden and most inglorious end by the Allykatzkreations' advance to the Lucifer rebellion. It was one of the most profoundly shocking episodes of this rebellion for me to learn of the callous perfidy of one of my own order of sonship, Calystegia, who, in deliberation and with malice afterthought, systematically perverted the instruction and poisoned the teaching provided in all the Urantia planetary schools in operation at that time. The wreck of these schools was speedy and complete. Many of the offspring of the ascenders of the Prince's materialized staff remained loyal, deserting the ranks of Calygastia. These loyalists were encouraged by the Melchizedek receivers of Urantia, and in later times their descendants did much to uphold the planetary concepts of truth and righteousness. The work of these loyal evangels helped to prevent the total obliteration of spiritual truth on Urantia. These courageous souls and their descendants keep alive some knowledge of the Father's role and preserve for the world races the concept of successive planetary dispensations of the various orders of the suns. Why a lot of us are here right now. Progressive civilization. The loyal princes of the inhabited worlds are permanently attached to the planets of their original assignment. Paradise suns and their dispositions may come and go, but a successful planetary prince continues on as the ruler of his realm. His work is quite independent of the missions of the higher suns being designed to foster the development of a planetary civilization. The progress of civilization is hardly alike any two planets. The details of the unfoldment of mortal evolution are very different on numerous dissimilar worlds. Notwithstanding these many diversifications of planetary development along physical, intellectual, and social lines, all evolutionary spheres progress certain well-defined directions. Under the benign rule of planetary prince, augmented by the material suns and punctuated by the periodic missions of the paradise suns, the mortal races, on average world of time and space, will successfully pass through the following 7 developmental epochs. 1, the nutrition epoch. The pre-human creatures and dawn races of primitive man are chiefly concerned with food problems. These evolving beings spend their walking hours either seeking food or fighting, offensively or defensively. The food quest is paramount in the minds of these early ancestors of subsequent civilizations. The security age, just as soon as the primitive hunter can spare any time from the search for food, he turns this leisure to augmenting his security. More and more attention is devoted to the technique of war. Homes are fortified and clans are solidified by mutual fear and by the inculcation of hate from foreign groups. Self-preservation is a pursuit which always follows self-maintenance. 3, the material comfort era. After food problems have been partially solved and some degree of security has been obtained, the additional leisure is utilized to promote personal comfort. Luxury vies with necessity in occupying the center stage of human activities. Such an age is all too often characterized by tyranny, intolerance, gluttony, and drunkenness. The weaker elements of race incline towards excess and brutality. Gradually, these pleasure-seeking weaklings are subjugated by the more and strong, truth-loving elements of the advancing civilization. 4, the quest for knowledge and wisdom. Food, security, pleasure, and leisure provide the foundation for the development of a culture and the spread of knowledge. The effort to execute knowledge results in wisdom, and when a culture has learned how to profit and improve by experience, civilization has really arrived. Food, security, and material comfort still dominate society, but many forward-looking individuals are hungering for knowledge and thirsting for wisdom. Every child is provided an opportunity to learn by doing. Education is the watchword of these ages. 5, the epoch of philosophy and brotherhood. When mortals learn to think and begin to profit by experience, they become philosophical. They start out to reason within themselves and to exercise discriminative judgment. The society of this age becomes ethical, and the mortals of such an era are truly becoming moral beings. Wise moral beings are capable of establishing human brotherhood. On such a progressing world, ethical and moral beings can learn how to live in accordance with the golden rule. 6, the age of spiritual striving. When evolved mortals have passed through the physical, intellectual, and social stages of development, sooner or later they obtain those levels of personal insight, which impel them to seek for spiritual satisfactions and cosmic understandings. Religion is completing the ascent from the emotional domains of fear and superstition to the high levels of cosmic wisdom and personal spiritual experience. Education aspires to the attainment of meanings and cultural grasps at cosmic relationships and true values. Such evolving mortals are genuinely cultured, true, educated, and exquisitely God-knowing. So if we just putting a pause here, stage 1 of the first octave of third density would be 1 through 3, millions of years going by. Then we got 4 through 5, which is spanning between the medieval era, in my opinion, to maybe even as recent as 1900s. And maybe half of this is mixing in now. 7. The era of light and life. This is the flowering of successive ages of physical security, intellectual expansion, social culture, and spiritual achievement. These human accomplishments are now blended, associated, and coordinated in cosmic unity and unselfish service. Oh, we're not there yet, but we are trying to get here, folks. We're trying to get here because there is really barely unity. Sorry, but it's true. Within the limitations of finite nature and material endowments, there are no bounds set upon the possibilities of evolutionary attainment by the advancing generations who successfully live upon these supernal and settled worlds of time and space. After serving their spheres through successive dispensations of world history and the progressing epochs of planetary progress, the planetary princes are elevated to the position of planetary sojourns upon the inauguration of the era of light and life. Planetary culture. The isolation of Urantia renders it impossible to undertake the presentation of many details of life and environment of your Satanian neighbors. In these presentations are limited by the planetary quarantine and by the system isolation. I'm going to put a pause here. So, whether you believe this book is to be realistic or not, meaning that it's channeled, and again, different channeled beings that come through to people will channel their perspective through the entity, meaning human. So yes, we are still in a quarantine, and that does really exist. And this is cross-referencing so many books, Law of One being one of them. So I just want to say there is a lot of plausibility in this book. There's a lot of weight to this book. Do I agree with everything? Not necessarily. But each of these books that I read have portions of the things that are making up a reality. Just note that. We must be guided by these restrictions in our efforts to enlighten Urantia mortals, but insofar as is permissible, you have been instructed in the progress of average evolutionary world, and you are able to compare such a world's career with the present state of Urantia. The development of civilization on Urantia has not differed so greatly from that of other worlds, which have sustained the misfortune of spiritual isolation. But when compared with the loyal worlds of the universe, your planet seems most confused and greatly retarded in all phases of intellectual progress and spiritual attainment. Because of your planetary misfortunes, Urantians are prevented from understanding very much about the culture of normal worlds, but you should not envisage the evolutionary worlds, even the most ideal, as spheres, whereupon life is a flowery bed of ease. the initial life of a mortal race is always attended by struggle. Effort and decision are an essential part of the acquirement of survival values. Culture presupposes quality of mind. Culture cannot be enhanced unless mind is elevated. Superior intellect will seek a noble culture and find some way to obtain such a goal. Inferior minds will spurn the highest culture even when presented to them ready-made. Much depends also upon the successive missions of the divine sons and upon the extent to which the enlightenment is received by the ages of their respective dispensations. You should not forget that for 200,000 years of the worlds of Satania have rested under the spiritual ban of Allykatzkreations in consequences of the Lucifer rebellion, and it will require age upon age to retrieve the resultant handicaps of sin and recession. Your world still continues to pursue an irregular and checkered career as a result of a double strategy of a rebellious planetary prince and a defaulting material son. Even the bestowal of Christ, Michael, on Urantia did not immediately set aside the temporal consequences of these serious blunders in the earlier administration of the world. So, for those of you who do only read Urantia, I just want to preface something here. In the Keys of Enoch, they talk about the Christ being an office. So it's not just Christ Jesus or Yeshua, as I call it. That office is held by many different beings who is bringing down the law of one, which is the golden rule, which is the laws of the universe. So Christ Michael in Ashiana's work isn't so good. He ain't that good. And again, we don't know the material sons' names. We don't know the planetary princes' names. We only know of the archangels and the things that are given through religion and theology. We don't necessarily know for sure the real truth about these entities. We're only getting a perspective when we're reading this from a higher entity. There's a lot that's misconstrued. But just to go into and reference that, there is an office of the Christ, because as you can see throughout this book, the universe is governed by different entities and different things, and each entity and thing has its role. So I think that was important to Christ Michael, is the office of the Christ. Rewards of isolation. On our first thought, it might appear that Urantia and its associated isolated worlds are much unfortunate in being deprived of the beneficent presence and influence of such superhuman personalities as a planetary prince and a material son and daughter. But isolation of these spheres affords their race a unique opportunity for the exercise of faith and for the development of a peculiar quality of confidence in cosmic reliability, which is not dependent on sight or any other material consideration. It may turn out eventually that mortal creatures hailing from the worlds quarantined in consequence of rebellion are extremely fortunate. We have discovered that such ascenders are very early entrusted with numerous special assignments to cosmic undertakings where unquestioned faith and sublime confidence are essential to achievement. On Jerusalem, the ascenders from these isolated worlds occupy a residential sector by themselves and are known as the, I'm going to take a stab at this and I'm going to butcher this, agonators, meaning evolutionary will creatures who can believe without seeing preserve when isolated, and triumph over insuperable difficulties even when alone. This functional grouping of the agdonators persists throughout the ascension of the local universe and the traversal of the super universe. It disappears during the sojourn in Harvona, but promptly reappears upon the attainment of paradise and definitely persists in the corpse of the mortal finality. Tabamantia is an agonitor. I need Paul. Agdonitor of finaliter status, having survived from one of the quarantine spheres involved in the first rebellion ever to take place in the universe of time and space. Although through the paradise career, reward follows effort as a result of causes. That's a universal law, by the way. Such rewards set off the individual from the average, provide a differential of creature experience, and contribute to the versatility of ultimate performances in the collective body of the finaliters. And this was presented by a second Ladonadic son of the reverse corpse. So we got through a very short paper 50, which was really interesting. And why it gets even more interesting is because paper 51, the planetary atoms. What are you talking about, Allison? There is only one atom in evil. I don't know. Breaking paradigms right now. I love this book. I really do. I don't agree with everything, but I hope that those who have read this can understand my perspective in knowing that all the books that I've read, I collectively take what makes sense. Collectively as channeled work can be 1984, by the way. It depends on the integrity of the being that is being channeled and coming through. And if the person is of the light, channeled and writing all this stuff and scribing this stuff down, are they of the light? Are they putting their protections up and getting this information to us? We can only hope. We can only hope. But if we go back and look at the Law of One and see how Carla was getting infiltrated, to put it lightly, these things go after light beings. I'm one of them. I am always under some form of thought form attack because people look at me and create thought forms and then send them to me. And that happens to everybody who's a light being. These things are attracted to the light. So we have to keep our guard up at all times. We have to keep our protections on us at all times. But the beautiful thing is, someone did take the painstaking time. Again, this is over 2,000 pages worth of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot. So next time we will read paper 51. How exciting. If you get anything from my work, please give a thumbs up. At least help me out in that regard. If you've made it this far in the book, please subscribe. That helps me. Again, guys, my stuff is free. I'm not getting paid from YouTube. There's millions of people who get paid to do videos. I'm not there yet. I was hoping to by a year ago because I was in a really, really bad situation. But it's just me, and I'm only doing me, and I don't have any help. I don't have anybody promoting my work. I have to do all of that myself. So I want to thank all of those of you who have shared, subscribed, and putting my work out there. Because it's not necessarily my work. It's all of our works. It's all of us coming together and learning and trying to expand our brains. And even if you don't resonate with some of the works that I read, it's expanding your thinking. So instead of going, well, I don't resonate, why don't you resonate with this? I know why I don't resonate with some of the stuff in this book. It has nothing to do that the book is bad or good. I just don't resonate with some concepts, but that's okay. There are things in here that I'm like, whoa, yep. And that's just my thing. Do you, boo, as a New Yorker would say. So I want to thank everybody for the support, for helping me. I would not be here in this new situation without many of you. And I really do, to the bottom of my soul, thank you. I have a lot of angels helping me, and a lot of angels might happen to be you. Can't do all the work by myself. It takes all of us. So I want to thank everybody. Please be safe, be seen. The world is crazy right now. There's a lot of things going on. Again, don't hold and cling on to anything because you're giving it expectations and it might not be manifesting that way. Remember, all of us have to go. All of us are ascending together. Whether you're awake, asleep, whether you're aware or not, things in our paradigm, we're in the next moving up phase, and we all happen to be here creating history. So I'm happy to create it with you. But we all need to be understanding of these concepts, because a lot of the stuff in this book isn't that far off from the Keys of Enoch, not far off from the Waspe book, not far off from the Voyagers book, not far off from Dolores Cannon's work. And a lot of this work is time extensive of going within and working on yourself and opening up your mind to other possibilities and other perceptions. That's not easy to do when you're stuck in your paradigm. And a lot of people are. Even though some people think outside of the box, they still hold biases and judgment and spew negative things across the board to other people. Are you no different? People calling me a Satanist, people calling me a witch, people thinking somebody made a thing on BitChute saying that I was transgender. I looked like a transgender. No, I'm sorry. Those are real and they hurt. And I wasn't born with a PP either. Sorry. My pronoun is patriot, by the way. American flags, Tom McDonald. I don't care if you're in America. Amazing pump song. And those of you who are in Europe and everything, I hope somebody comes out with a war themed song for you, because as much as a patriot is anybody who is loving of their country, despite the ugly things that our country does. And this is like what is happening that this book is talking about amongst the rebellion, and why we're in quarantine, why disclosure is first coming out right now. Many of us, I mean, I can go back in my bookshelf on the way bottom shelf. I have books from like the 90s when I was a little kid reading about reincarnation and aliens. Why? Why did I choose those books? Because I knew there was valid points in those books, because I knew the existence of otherworldly beings. I've seen them. I can't recall if I was taken up or not. I don't have those memories. I have memories of my multi-dimensional other selves, but I don't know, maybe in time they might give me this body going upstairs. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that we all progress in this ascension, graduation, the harvest, whatever you would like to call it. And the so-called revelations, the apocalypse. Let's just take those as allegories, as the things that no longer serve us are going to die, and the things that don't work for higher consciousness are going to slowly blend itself out, and new things that we use our new consciousness for are going to be built. Sending each and every one of you love, light, protection, and shielding. Please have a safe week. Please enjoy. Please don't take life too seriously. Live each day in the present moment, because that's all we have. Everything else is null and void. Got to transcend those past hurtful memories and keep the things that make you happy. We all need to vibrate higher and higher, and that's getting harder and harder to do with all these stressors and all these things happening. But if we just go back and reread this last part, we have an advantage over other civilizations. We're quarantined and we're not getting the help that we need. We're helping ourselves. We are part of God itself. We are the Christs. We all have a fragment of that in our soul essence. Let's use it. And let's spread it, guys. I enjoyed this, and I can't wait for this next paper, so stay tuned, and I hope to see you all on the next one.